The stagecoach rattled into Platteville, Colorado on a sweltering August afternoon in 1878, carrying 7 passengers who all had their reasons for going west, except for one man who sat in the corner with nothing but emptiness in his chest and dust on his boots. Harrison Sutton pressed his hat lower over his eyes, watching the other passengers through the shadow of the brim. Across from him, a young woman with auburn hair pinned under a modest bonnet clutched a letter in her gloved hands, reading it for what must have been the 100th time since they left Denver. Next to her, a portly merchant spoke endlessly about the opportunities waiting in the mining towns. An elderly couple heading to live with their daughter, a preacher carrying his worn Bible, a young man with dreams of striking it rich in the silver mines. Every single one of them had a destination, a purpose, a reason that burned bright enough to carry them through the scorching heat and bone-rattling journey across the Colorado plains. Harrison had listened to their stories for 2 days, nodding politely when addressed, but offering nothing of his own. What could he say? That he had woken up one morning in his ranch outside of Cheyenne and realized that the life he had built meant absolutely nothing. That every fence post he had driven into the ground, every head of cattle he had branded, every sunrise he had watched from his porch felt like an elaborate performance for an audience that did not exist, so he had sold everything. Given most of the money to his ranch hands who had served him well, packed a single bag, and bought a ticket on the first stagecoach heading anywhere. The young woman with the letter looked up, catching his eye. Harrison looked away quickly, but not before noticing the redness around her eyes, the way her lower lip trembled slightly before she pressed her mouth into a firm line. The stagecoach lurched to a stop in front of a modest wooden building with a faded sign reading, Platteville Station. The driver's gruff voice called out, "20-minute rest stop, folks. Get yourselves some water and stretch your legs." Harrison climbed down, his muscles grateful for the movement after hours of sitting. Platteville was not much to look at. A main street lined with sun-bleached buildings, a general store, a saloon, a church with a steeple that leaned slightly to the left. Beyond the town, the Colorado plains stretched endlessly, broken only by the distant purple smudge of mountains. He walked to the water trough, dunked his bandana in, and wiped his face and neck. The water was warm but still a relief. He noticed the young woman from the stagecoach standing near the station building, looking at the town with an expression that mixed hope and terror in equal measure. First time in Colorado, Harrison found himself asking, surprising himself. He had not planned to speak to anyone. She turned, startled, then offered a small smile. "Is it that obvious? Only because you are looking at this place like it is either going to save you or swallow you whole." Harrison leaned against the post. Usually means someone is starting over. The smile faded slightly. "I suppose everyone on that coach is starting over in some way." "Suppose so. Except perhaps you," she said, studying him with gray eyes that were sharper than he expected. "You have the look of someone who is just going with no particular interest in what comes after." Harrison felt something shift in his chest, uncomfortable and unfamiliar. "That obvious too, only because I recognize the expression." She extended a gloved hand. "Adelaide Jensen." He took it, her grip surprisingly firm through the thin fabric. "Harrison Sutton." "Well, Mr. Sutton, I hope you find whatever it is you are looking for, or perhaps what you are running from, whichever makes more sense." Before he could respond, the driver called everyone back to the coach. Adelaide gathered her skirts and climbed aboard. Harrison followed, settling back into his corner, but found his eyes drifting to her more than once during the next leg of the journey. When they reached the larger station at the edge of Platteville proper, passengers began disembarking with their various pieces of luggage. The merchant was met by a business associate. The elderly couple was embraced by a young woman Harrison assumed was their daughter. The preacher was greeted by what looked like a small congregation. The prospector headed immediately toward the saloon, probably to gather information about the nearest claims. Adelaide stood on the wooden platform, her single trunk beside her, looking up and down the street with that same mixture of hope and fear. "Someone meeting you?" Harrison asked, surprising himself again. She shook her head. "No, I am expected at the schoolhouse. I am to be the new teacher. But I was told someone from the school board would meet me, and I do not see anyone who looks particularly official." As if summoned by her words, a thin man in a brown suit hurried toward them, mopping his brow with a handkerchief. "Miss Jensen, Adelaide Jensen." "Yes, that is me." "Thank goodness. I am Gerald Hopkins, head of the school board. I apologize for my tardiness. There was a situation at the schoolhouse that required attention." He looked harried and overwhelmed. "Welcome to Platteville. I hope your journey was not too difficult." "It was manageable, thank you." Hopkins grabbed her trunk. "Let me show you to your lodgings. You will be staying in the room behind the schoolhouse. It is modest, but it is clean and has everything you should need. School starts in 2 weeks, which should give you time to settle in and prepare." Adelaide glanced back at Harrison. "Thank you, Mr. Sutton. Safe travels." Harrison tipped his hat, watching as Hopkins led her down the street, chattering about the town and the students and various administrative matters. Then he stood alone on the platform with his single bag. No destination, no purpose, no plan. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Harrison picked up his bag and walked toward the saloon. At least there would be whiskey there and a bed for the night. Maybe by morning he would figure out what to do next. Or maybe he would just buy another ticket on another stagecoach heading somewhere else. It did not particularly matter. The Platteville saloon was called the Silver Dollar, though Harrison doubted any actual silver dollars had seen the inside of it in years. The bar was scarred wood, the floor covered in sawdust, the air thick with tobacco smoke and the smell of unwashed bodies. A piano sat in the corner, silent and probably out of tune. Harrison ordered whiskey and took it to a table in the back. The barkeep, a massive man with a gray beard, watched him with the wary eye of someone who had seen plenty of drifters come through. "You looking for work?" the barkeep asked. "No. Room for the night?" "Yes. 2 bits. Breakfast included if you are down by 6. Harrison paid, drank his whiskey slowly, and watched the other patrons, a card game in the corner growing increasingly heated. A few ranch hands drinking away their week's wages. An old-timer nursing a beer and telling stories no one was listening to. He was on his 3rd whiskey when a commotion outside drew everyone's attention. Raised voices, the sound of something crashing. The saloon doors swung open and Gerald Hopkins stumbled in, his suit torn, a cut above his eye bleeding freely. "Someone needs to do something about the schoolhouse," Hopkins said, looking around wildly. "Those ranch boys are tearing it apart. They have been drinking all afternoon and decided the new teacher does not deserve a place to stay. They are throwing furniture out the windows." Several men exchanged glances, but no one moved. Harrison understood the calculation happening. Getting involved meant possibly getting hurt, definitely making enemies, and for what? A schoolteacher they did not know. Everyone had a reason not to go. Everyone except Harrison, who had no reasons for anything anymore. He stood up, draining the last of his whiskey. "Where is the schoolhouse?" Hopkins stared at him. "You will help?" I asked where it is. 2 streets over, the white building with the bell tower. But there are 4 of them, and they are armed and drunk, which is the worst combination a man can encounter. Harrison walked past him, out into the cooling evening air. He heard footsteps behind him and turned to see Hopkins following at a distance, along with a few curious onlookers who wanted to see what would happen but not participate. The schoolhouse was indeed white, though the paint was peeling. One of the windows was broken and furniture was piled haphazardly in the yard. Harrison could hear shouting inside, male voices rough with alcohol and bravado, and one female voice, clear and defiant. Adelaide. Harrison pushed open the door. The main classroom was chaos. Desks overturned, books scattered, the chalkboard cracked. 4 young men, none older than 25, were ransacking the place with the enthusiasm of destruction. Adelaide stood in the doorway to what must be her living quarters, holding a broom like a weapon. "I said get out," she repeated, her voice steady despite the fear Harrison could see in her eyes. One of the men, tall and blond with a cruel smile, laughed. "Or what? You will sweep us out. We run cattle for the Harrison Ranch. We do what we want in this town." "That is the Haverson Ranch, Jake, you idiot," one of his friends said, slurring his words. "Whatever. Point is, we do not need some fancy Eastern schoolteacher coming here telling our kids lies about reading and arithmetic. Life lesson happen out on the range, not in some building." "The school board hired me," Adelaide said. "This is my place of work and my home. You are trespassing and you are going to leave. Now." Harrison had heard enough. "Lady said get out." 4 heads turned toward him. Jake, the tall blond one, looked him up and down and apparently liked what he saw because his cruel smile widened. "And who might you be?" "The schoolteacher's husband." "No one you want to cross. Leave." "There are 4 of us and one of you, stranger. Maybe you are the one who should leave." Harrison had not wanted this. He had not wanted anything. But standing here, watching Adelaide try to be brave while her hands shook on that broom handle, watching these drunk fools destroy something she had traveled hundreds of miles to build, he felt something crack open inside him. Not quite purpose, not yet, but at least direction. "Last chance," Harrison said quietly. Jake pulled a knife. His friends spread out, flanking Harrison. The onlookers outside gasped and stepped back. What happened next was quick and efficient. Harrison had spent 20 years working cattle, breaking horses, and dealing with every kind of trouble the frontier could throw at a man. He was not a gunfighter, not a brawler by nature, but he was capable and he was sober, which gave him an enormous advantage. He ducked under Jake's knife swing, drove his shoulder into the man's gut, and sent him crashing into an overturned desk. The second man rushed him from the left. Harrison sidestepped, stuck out his foot, and sent him sprawling. The third hesitated, realized this was not going as planned, and bolted for the door. The fourth, the drunkest of them all, swung wild punches that Harrison dodged easily before grabbing the man's collar and physically throwing him out the door. Jake was struggling to his feet, knife still in hand, murder in his eyes. Harrison picked up a length of wood from a broken desk and cracked it across Jake's wrist. The knife clattered to the floor. Another swift movement, and Jake was face down with his arm twisted behind his back. "You going to walk out, or do I need to carry you?" Harrison asked. Jake cursed but nodded. Harrison released him and watched as the 4 men stumbled out of the schoolhouse, Jake cradling his wrist and promising various forms of revenge that Harrison did not bother to acknowledge. When they were gone, silence fell over the classroom. Harrison stood among the wreckage, breathing hard, wondering what exactly he had just done and why. "Thank you," Adelaide said softly. She had lowered the broom but still gripped it tightly. "You did not have to do that." Seemed like someone should. She looked around at the destruction, and for the first time her composure cracked. Tears welled in her eyes. "I have not even been here 6 hours. How am I supposed to teach children in this? How am I supposed to live here?" Harrison picked up an overturned chair and righted it. One piece at a time, you start by putting things back together. I cannot do this alone. Her voice broke. Then I will help. She looked at him, searching his face for something. Why, you said yourself you are just passing through. You have no reason to stay here and help me clean up this mess. Harrison picked up another chair, then a desk, setting them carefully in rows. Maybe that is exactly why. Everyone else has reasons not to help. I have got no reasons at all, which means I am free to do whatever seems right at the moment. Hopkins appeared in the doorway with a few other townspeople. Is everyone all right? Should we fetch the sheriff? What sheriff? Adelaide asked bitterly. I was told Platteville does not have one. We do not, officially. The county sheriff is 2 days' ride away. We have been trying to convince the county to station a deputy here, but so far no luck. Hopkins looked genuinely distressed. Miss Jensen, I am so terribly sorry. The Haverson Ranch boys have been a problem for months, but they have never done anything this destructive before. We will help you clean up. We will replace what is broken. Please do not leave. I signed a contract, Adelaide said, wiping her eyes, and I do not break my word. But I expect the school board to ensure this does not happen again. Of course. We will post a watch. We will talk to old man Haverson about his men. This will not stand. The next 2 hours were spent cleaning. More townspeople arrived, some bringing tools and supplies. The broken window was temporarily boarded up. Furniture was repaired where possible. Books were gathered and checked for damage. The living quarters behind the classroom, which had suffered less destruction, were put back in order. Harrison worked steadily, saying little, but aware of Adelaide moving through the chaos with determination, directing people, thanking them, slowly transforming disaster back into order. By the time the work was done, full dark had fallen. The townspeople drifted away with promises to return tomorrow with proper glass for the window and new supplies for what could not be salvaged. Hopkins left with one final apology. Adelaide stood in the middle of the classroom, surveying the space. It was not perfect, but it was functional. She turned to Harrison. I do not even know how to begin thanking you. No thanks needed. You saved me from those men. You helped put everything back together. The least I can do is offer you supper. I have not got much, but I have some bread and cheese and preserves from the journey. Harrison should have declined, should have gone back to the saloon, to his rented room, to his purposeless drifting. Instead, he found himself nodding. That would be nice. Her living quarters were simple but comfortable. A bed, a dresser, a small table with 2 chairs, a potbelly stove. Adelaide lit a lamp and unpacked her food supplies. They sat across from each other at the small table, and Harrison realized this was the first time in months he had shared a meal with someone. So, Adelaide said, spreading preserves on bread. What brought you to Platteville, Mr. Sutton? A stagecoach, she smiled slightly. I meant what brought you to Colorado, what made you leave wherever you came from. Nothing made me leave, I just went. That is what I said earlier, but I did not actually believe it. Everyone has a reason. Everyone except me. Harrison ate his bread, considering how much to tell her. I had a ranch outside Cheyenne. Good land, decent herd, money in the bank. Woke up one day and realized none of it mattered, so I sold it and started moving. And you are moving toward something or away from something? Neither. Just moving. Adelaide studied him with those sharp gray eyes. I do not believe that either, but I will not press. We all have our stories and we tell them when we are ready. What is yours? She took a bite of bread, chewing slowly, deciding. I was engaged to a banker in Philadelphia. Very respectable, very proper, very promising. Everyone said I was lucky to have caught his attention. We were 2 months from the wedding when I discovered he already had a wife and 3 children in Boston. Harrison felt anger kindle in his chest. What did you do? I confronted him. He offered to keep me as a mistress in Philadelphia while maintaining his real family in Boston. He said it was practical, that I should be flattered he wanted to keep seeing me. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. I broke off the engagement, returned all the gifts, and discovered that Philadelphia society was not particularly interested in my side of the story. I became the woman who could not keep a man who had caused a scandal. My teaching position at the girls' academy was politely terminated. So you came west. So I came west. I saw an advertisement for a teacher in Colorado. I wrote to the school board. They hired me based on my credentials and my letter of recommendation from the academy, which was at least generous enough to praise my teaching abilities if not my character. I packed my trunk and bought a ticket on the first train heading this direction. Running away then. Starting over, she corrected. There is a difference. Running away is reactive, desperate. Starting over is a choice, a decision to build something new. And which am I doing? Adelaide met his eyes. I think you are still figuring that out. They finished their meal in comfortable silence. When Harrison stood to leave, Adelaide walked him to the door of the schoolhouse. Will you still be here tomorrow? She asked. Probably. Got nowhere else to be. Then maybe you could help me with a few more things. The bookshelf is still crooked, and I need to reorganize all the supplies. Harrison found himself nodding. I can do that. He walked back through the quiet streets of Platteville, the night air cool after the heat of the day. The saloon was still lit and rowdy, but he went around back to the external stairs leading to the rented rooms. His was sparse. A bed, a washstand, a chair. He lay down fully clothed, staring at the ceiling. For the first time in months, Harrison fell asleep without the crushing weight of meaninglessness pressing on his chest. He woke at dawn to roosters crowing and the sounds of a town coming to life. After washing up and eating the promised breakfast downstairs, eggs, bacon, and coffee strong enough to strip paint, Harrison found himself walking toward the schoolhouse. Adelaide was already up, sweeping the front steps. She had changed into a different dress, her hair pinned up in a simple style, and she looked tired but determined. "Good morning," she called. "I was hoping you meant it about helping today. I do not say things I do not mean. Good. Because I need someone tall to help me with the bookshelf, and you are the tallest person I trust in this town." They worked through the morning, straightening furniture, organizing supplies, washing the chalkboard. Adelaide had a system for everything, and Harrison found himself following her instructions, measuring and adjusting and arranging until the classroom began to look like a proper place of learning. Around noon, a woman arrived with a basket. She was middle-aged, wearing a faded calico dress, her hands work-roughened but her smile genuine. "Miss Jensen, I am Martha Crawford. My 2 children will be in your class come fall. I heard about what happened yesterday and wanted to bring you some lunch." She eyed Harrison with open curiosity. "I see you have made a friend already. This is Mr. Sutton. He helped me yesterday and has been kind enough to continue helping today." Martha set down the basket, which proved to contain fried chicken, biscuits, and fresh vegetables. "Well, Mr. Sutton, the town is grateful. Those Haverson boys have been nothing but trouble for months. Someone needed to stand up to them." "How did old man Haverson respond?" Adelaide asked. "Furious from what I heard, but not at his boys, at the town for not accepting their behavior. He is a hard man, Miss Jensen. Built his ranch through stubbornness and grit, and he expects the whole town to bow to him because he employs half the ranch hands in the county." "I am not interested in bowing to anyone," Adelaide said firmly. "I came here to teach children. That is what I intend to do." Martha smiled. "I think you will do just fine here. We need someone with spine." The last teacher left after 2 months because the older boys kept causing trouble and no one would support her. After Martha left, Harrison and Adelaide ate lunch at the small table in her quarters. The chicken was excellent, seasoned with herbs and perfectly crispy. "You think the Haverson boys will come back?" Adelaide asked. "Maybe. Men like that do not like being embarrassed, but they will think twice after yesterday. And will you still be here if they do come back?" Harrison set down his chicken. "Why do you keep asking if I will be here?" "Because I need to know if I am relying on someone who is going to disappear tomorrow. I need to know if I should be preparing to face the next crisis alone. I thought you said you could handle yourself." "I can. But that does not mean I want to." Adelaide's voice was steady, but Harrison heard the vulnerability underneath. "I came here with nothing but hope and determination. Yesterday almost broke both. You helped hold them together. I am just trying to understand if that was a one-time kindness or something I can count on." Harrison looked at her, really looked at her, and saw someone who had been broken and was trying desperately to rebuild herself into something stronger. He recognized it because he saw the same thing in the mirror, except he had not gotten to the rebuilding part yet. "I will be here," he heard himself say. "Why?" Still figuring that out. Adelaide smiled, and Harrison felt something shift in his chest again, that crack widening just slightly, letting in a sliver of light. They finished the meal and returned to work. By late afternoon, the schoolhouse looked ready for students. The bookshelf was straight, the supplies organized, the desks in neat rows. Adelaide stood at the front of the classroom, hands on her hips, surveying her domain with satisfaction. "It looks good," Harrison said. "It looks perfect. Thank you, Mr. Sutton. I could not have done this without you." "Harrison is fine. Mr. Sutton makes me sound like someone important. You are important, at least to me right now in this moment. That counts for something." Harrison did not know how to respond to that, so he simply nodded and gathered his hat. "Will you come by tomorrow?" Adelaide asked. "I know the major work is done, but I need to start planning lessons, and it would be helpful to have someone to talk to. Someone who can tell me about life out here, what the children might need to learn beyond reading and arithmetic. I am not sure I am the best person for that. I have not been around children much, but you have been around life. That is what matters." So Harrison came back the next day and the day after that. He found himself falling into a routine he had not intended. Mornings helping Adelaide prepare the schoolhouse. Afternoons sitting in the classroom while she planned lessons and asked him questions about frontier life, about managing livestock, about reading weather and land. Evenings sometimes sharing meals, sometimes just talking as the sun set and the heat finally broke. A week passed. The window was repaired with proper glass. New supplies arrived from Denver. Children began stopping by with their parents to meet the new teacher. Adelaide handled each meeting with grace and confidence, learning names, asking about interests, making every child feel important. Harrison watched her transform from the scared young woman on the stage coach to someone who belonged here, who had found her purpose in this dusty Colorado town. And he realized he was starting to feel something dangerous, something that went beyond helping a stranger. Something that made him want to stay in Platteville, not because he had nowhere else to go, but because this was where she was. He was sitting on the schoolhouse steps one evening, watching the sunset paint the plains gold and crimson, when Adelaide came out and sat beside him. "Penny for your thoughts," she said, "not worth a penny." "I will be the judge of that." Harrison was quiet for a long moment. "I have been here almost 2 weeks, longest I have stayed anywhere since I left Cheyenne." "Is that a problem?" "Might be. I told myself I was just drifting. No destination, no purpose. But staying here helping you, it feels like purpose, and I am not sure I am ready for that." Adelaide pulled her shawl tighter around her shoulders as the evening air cooled. Why not? What is so frightening about having purpose? Purpose means caring. Caring means it can be taken away, or it can fail, or you can wake up one day and realize it was all meaningless. Is that what happened with your ranch? Harrison nodded slowly. I built that place from nothing. Every fence post, every barn board, every head of cattle, I was so proud of it. And then one morning I woke up and looked at it all and felt absolutely nothing, just emptiness. Like I had spent 20 years building an elaborate stage set for a play no one was watching. Were you alone, on the ranch? Yes. There is your answer then. Adelaide turned to look at him. You did not fail at building the ranch. You failed at building a life. There is a difference. Purpose without connection is just task completion. It is checking boxes, finishing chores. Real purpose comes from mattering to someone, from being part of something bigger than yourself. That sounds like something a schoolteacher would say, she smiled. I am a schoolteacher. It is my job to say wise things even when I am still learning them myself. And have you found that here? Real purpose. I am starting to. The children matter, the town matters, this school matters. She paused, then added quietly, you matter. Harrison felt his breath catch. Adelaide, I know you are scared. I am scared too. I came here running from heartbreak and humiliation, telling myself I just needed a fresh start. But the truth is, I wanted to find a place where I could matter, where I could build connections that meant something. And I think I am starting to find that, with the school, with the town. She met his eyes, with you. You barely know me. I know you helped me when no one else would. I know you have come back every day, even though you have no obligation to. I know you listen when I talk and think before you speak and care about doing things right, even when it would be easier not to. That is enough to start with. Harrison wanted to protest, to explain all the reasons this was a bad idea, to remind her that he was a drifter with nothing to offer. But the words died in his throat because they were not quite true anymore. He had something to offer now, his time, his help, his presence. It was not much, but it was something. I do not know how to do this, he admitted. Do what? Stay, connect, matter. I thought I knew with the ranch, but I was wrong. I am afraid of being wrong again. Adelaide reached over and took his hand. Her fingers were small and soft compared to his calloused ones, but her grip was firm. Then we will figure it out together. Both of us are starting over, building new lives. Maybe we are supposed to build them together. Harrison looked at their joined hands, feeling the warmth of her touch, the solidity of it. He could pull away, could stand up, walk back to the saloon, buy a ticket on tomorrow's stagecoach, could return to his purposeless drifting, or he could stay, could risk caring again. Could let this woman with her sharp gray eyes and determined spirit become his reason. I will stay, he said, for as long as you want me here. What if I want you here for a very long time? Then I guess I will be here for a very long time. Adelaide smiled, bright and genuine, and Harrison felt that crack in his chest open further, flooding him with warmth and light and something that might, eventually, be called happiness. They sat on the schoolhouse steps as the sun finished setting, hands clasped. Two people who had come west with nothing but pain and emptiness, finding in each other the beginning of healing. The next morning, Harrison went to the general store and asked about work. The owner, a shrewd man named Peterson, eyed him thoughtfully. You are the fellow who stood up to the Haverson boys. I am. You planning to stay in Platteville, thinking about it. Can you work with wood? I need someone to help with repairs around town. Fences, building maintenance, that sort of thing. Pay is not great, but it is steady. I can work with wood. Then you have got a job, start tomorrow. Harrison left the store feeling strange. He had a job, a place to stay, a reason to be in Platteville beyond just drifting. It should have terrified him. Instead, it felt right. He spent the rest of the day helping Adelaide prepare for the school opening, which was now less than a week away. She was nervous, constantly checking and rechecking her lesson plans, rearranging the classroom for the dozenth time. "What if they do not like me?" she asked as they organized the bookshelf yet again. "They will like you. What if I am a terrible teacher? You will be a great teacher. How do you know? Because you care. That is more than half the battle." Adelaide stopped fussing with the books and turned to him. "When did you become so wise?" "I am not wise, just observant. Same thing sometimes." That evening they walked through the town together. Harrison showed Adelaide around properly, introducing her to the people he had met. The baker who made excellent sourdough, the blacksmith who was also the unofficial town mechanic, the widow who ran the boarding house and knew everything about everyone. Adelaide charmed them all with her genuine interest and warm smile. As they walked back toward the schoolhouse, Adelaide slipped her arm through his. It was a simple gesture, casual, but it felt monumental. They were not just two people helping each other anymore. They were becoming something more. "Thank you for today," Adelaide said as they reached the schoolhouse. "I did not do anything special. You helped me feel like I belong here. That is very special." Harrison found himself leaning down, drawn by something he could not name. Adelaide rose on her toes, meeting him halfway. Their kiss was soft, tentative, a question and an answer all at once. When they pulled apart, Adelaide was smiling. "I have been wanting to do that for days." "Why did you wait?" "I wanted to make sure you were staying. I have had enough of men who leave." "I am not going anywhere." "Good." They kissed again. Longer this time, deeper, and Harrison felt the last of the emptiness that had driven him from Cheyenne finally begin to fill with something real and solid and worth holding on to. The week before school opened passed in a blur of activity. Harrison started his job with Peterson, repairing fences and fixing broken steps and patching roofs. The work was simple but satisfying, the kind of task that left him physically tired but mentally clear. Evenings he spent with Adelaide, helping her with final preparations, sharing meals, talking about everything and nothing. They discussed books and weather and the future. Harrison told her about growing up on a small farm in Kansas, learning to work cattle, building his ranch. Adelaide told him about her childhood in Philadelphia, her love of learning, her dreams of making a difference. They grew closer with each conversation, each touch, each shared moment. Harrison had never experienced anything like it. With Adelaide, he did not feel like he had to perform or prove anything. He could just be himself, emptiness and all, and she accepted it. The Haverson boys had not returned, but Harrison heard rumors. Jake was nursing his wounded pride along with his sprained wrist. Old man Haverson was furious that some drifter had laid hands on his men. There would be consequences, people whispered. Harrison needed to watch his back. He did not mention the rumors to Adelaide. She had enough to worry about with the school opening. The first day of school arrived on a bright September morning. Adelaide was up before dawn, dressed in her best teaching dress, her hair pinned in an elaborate style that must have taken an hour. She looked beautiful and terrified. What if none of the children come? She asked, pacing her small quarters. They will come. What if their parents kept them home because of what happened with the Haverson boys? What if the town decided I am too much trouble? Harrison caught her by the shoulders, stopping her pacing. Adelaide, breathe. You are going to be wonderful. The children are going to love you, and I will be right here if you need me. You are not staying, are you? You have work with Peterson. I told him I needed the morning off. I am staying. Relief flooded her face. Thank you. The children began arriving at 8 o'clock. First a trickle, then a flood. 15 students total, ranging from 6 years old to 14. Some came with eager faces, some with reluctant ones, but they all came. Adelaide stood at the front of the classroom, welcoming each one by name, directing them to seats, handing out slates and chalk. She had transformed from nervous to confident the moment the first child walked through the door. This was her purpose, Harrison realized. This was what she was meant to do. He watched from the back of the room as she began the first lesson. Reading from McGuffey's Reader, teaching the younger children their letters while the older ones practiced penmanship. Her voice was clear and patient. She made learning feel like discovery rather than drudgery. At noon, the children were dismissed for lunch. Some went home, some ate lunches from pails under the shade of the trees in the schoolyard. Adelaide collapsed into her chair, grinning. "They are wonderful," she said. Every single one of them, even the older boys who thought they were too cool for school. They listened, they participated, they learned. "Told you, you were right, do not let it go to your head," Harrison smiled. Too late. He left to start his afternoon work with Peterson, but his mind kept drifting back to the schoolhouse, to Adelaide's joy, to the way she had found her place in the world. He was repairing a fence behind the general store when Peterson came out, looking grim. "Harrison, there is someone looking for you at the saloon, says it is urgent." Harrison set down his hammer. "Who?" "One of the Haverson Ranch hands, not one of the boys who caused trouble, one of the older men, says he has a message from the old man himself." Harrison walked to the saloon, tension building in his shoulders. The ranch hand was waiting outside, a grizzled man in his 50s with a weathered face. "You Sutton?" the man asked. "I am." "Old man Haverson wants to see you out at the ranch, says it is important. And if I decline?" The ranch hand shrugged. "Your choice. But the old man is not someone you want to refuse. He holds grudges, and he has got the money and men to make them stick." Harrison considered. He could refuse, could try to avoid whatever confrontation Haverson wanted. But that would just delay the inevitable. Better to face it head on. "I will come, but I have got work to finish first. Tell Haverson I will be there at sunset." The ranch hand nodded and rode off. Harrison finished his work with Peterson, then stopped by the schoolhouse. Adelaide was still teaching, her voice drifting through the open windows as she led the children in reciting the alphabet. He waited until school was dismissed, watching the children file out with their slates and books, chattering about the day. When the last one left, he went inside. Adelaide was cleaning the chalkboard, humming softly to herself. She turned when she heard his footsteps, her smile bright. "Harrison, how was your afternoon?" "Mine was incredible. The children are so eager to learn. Even the ones who pretended to be bored were actually paying attention. I think this is going to work. I think I am actually going to be good at this." "You are going to be great at this." Harrison took off his hat, turning it in his hands. "Adelaide, I need to tell you something." Her smile faded. "What is wrong?" "Haverson sent for me. Wants me to come out to his ranch tonight." "Why?" "Probably to threaten me, maybe to try to buy me off. Could be he just wants to posture and make me understand who runs things around here." Adelaide set down the chalk. "You are not going." "I have to." "No, you do not. You can ignore him. You can leave town if you have to." "I am not leaving town, and ignoring him will just make things worse." Harrison stepped closer, taking her hands. "I have spent months running from everything. I am done running. I need to face this." "What if he hurts you?" "He will not. Not on his own property. That would make him look weak. He will threaten and bluster, and I will stand my ground, and we will come to some kind of understanding." "You do not know that." "No, but I know I am not running anymore. I found something here worth staying for, worth fighting for." He squeezed her hands. "You," Adelaide's eyes filled with tears. "I cannot lose you, not now, not when I just found you. You are not going to lose me, I promise." Men always make promises they cannot keep. I am not other men." She pulled him down and kissed him hard, desperately, like she was trying to memorize the feel of him. When they broke apart, she whispered, "Come back to me, always." Harrison rode out to the Haverson Ranch as the sun was setting, painting the landscape in shades of orange and purple. The ranch was impressive, sprawling across a wide valley with mountains in the distance. Cattle dotted the fields. A large main house sat at the center, surrounded by barns and bunkhouses. A ranch hand met him at the gate and escorted him to the main house. Inside, the daycare was expensive but not refined. Heavy furniture, animal heads on the walls, thick rugs on hardwood floors. The house of a man who had money but no class. Old man Haverson sat in a leather chair by the fireplace, despite the warmth of the evening. He was in his 60s, barrel-chested and broad-shouldered, with iron-gray hair and eyes like chips of flint. He did not stand when Harrison entered. "So you are the drifter who laid hands on my boys," Haverson said, his voice gravelly. "I am the man who stopped them from destroying the schoolhouse. They were just having fun. They were trespassing and threatening the teacher." Haverson grunted. "My boys said you have been hanging around that schoolteacher, Eastern woman with fancy ideas about education. Miss Jensen is a qualified teacher hired by the school board. Miss Jensen is trouble, filling children's heads with nonsense instead of teaching them practical skills. My ranch hands have children in that school. I do not want them learning to be soft." Harrison kept his voice level. "With respect, Mr. Haverson, what the children learn is between their parents and the school board. It is not your decision. Everything in this town is my decision." Haverson leaned forward. "I own half the land around Platteville. I employ most of the men. I bankroll the church and the general store and the saloon. This town exists because of me. So when I say that schoolteacher is trouble, people listen. I am not people. No, you are a drifter with nothing but the clothes on your back and some fool notion of protecting a woman you barely know. Do you know what I could do to you? I could make sure you never work in this county again. I could make your life so miserable you would be begging for a ticket out of Colorado." Harrison met the old man's eyes steadily. "You could try." Haverson stared at him, then barked a laugh. "You have got guts, stupid but guts. Let me make you an offer. Leave Platteville. I will give you $500 and a horse, clean break, no trouble. No, the schoolteacher is not worth it." "That is not your decision either." Haverson's expression hardened. "Then let me be clear. I do not like you. I do not like your interference. And I do not like some drifter thinking he can stand up to me in my own town. You stay, and there will be consequences. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but they will come. And when they do, that schoolteacher is going to learn a hard lesson about choosing the wrong man." Harrison stepped closer, his voice quiet but firm. "If you or your boys come near Adelaide or that school again, consequences will come your way too. You might have money and land and men, but you do not have control over everyone. There are lines even you should not cross. Threatening a schoolteacher is one of them. You threatening me in my own house. I am making you a promise. Leave her alone. Leave the school alone. And we will have no problems. And if I do not, then you will find out just how stubborn a drifter with nothing to lose can be." The two men stared at each other, the tension thick enough to cut. Finally, Haverson waved his hand dismissively. "Get out of my house. But remember this conversation, drifter. I do not forget, and I do not forgive." Harrison turned and walked out, his heart pounding but his steps steady. He mounted his horse and rode back toward Platteville as full dark fell, stars beginning to emerge in the vast Colorado sky. When he reached the schoolhouse, Adelaide was waiting on the steps, wrapped in her shawl. She ran to him as he dismounted, throwing her arms around him. "You are all right. Thank God you are all right." Harrison held her close, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling the solidity of her in his arms. "I told you I would come back." "What happened?" He threatened me. I threatened him back. "We came to an understanding." "What kind of understanding?" "The kind where we both know where we stand and what will happen if either of us crosses the line." Adelaide pulled back to look at his face. "This is not over, is it?" "Probably not. But it is managed for now. Harrison is used to people backing down. He does not know what to do with someone who stands their ground. It will take him a while to figure out his next move." "And then what?" "Then we deal with it. Together." Adelaide kissed him, softer this time, and Harrison felt the fear and tension of the evening drain away, replaced by something warmer and more permanent. "Stay with me tonight," Adelaide whispered. "I do not want to be alone." Harrison hesitated. "People will talk." "Let them talk." "I am tired of caring what people think." So he stayed. They lay together in Adelaide's small bed, fully clothed but intimately close, talking in whispers until sleep claimed them both. It was the most peaceful night Harrison had experienced in longer than he could remember. The next weeks fell into a comfortable rhythm. Adelaide taught during the day, Harrison worked with Peterson. Evenings they spent together, sometimes at the schoolhouse, sometimes walking through town, sometimes just sitting quietly and enjoying each other's company. The town was warming to them as a couple. The women who had initially been suspicious of the Eastern schoolteacher began inviting Adelaide to quilting circles and church socials. The men who had initially dismissed Harrison as a drifter started treating him as a fixture of the community, asking his opinion on town matters. Harrison found himself settling in ways he had never managed at his ranch. This was not just about building something physical. This was about building connections, relationships, a life that mattered because it was shared with people who mattered. Adelaide's students adored her. She had a gift for making learning exciting, for connecting lessons to their lives, for believing in each child's potential. Even the older boys who had initially resisted were now her most dedicated students. Everything seemed to be going perfectly, which should have been Harrison's first warning that trouble was coming. It arrived on a cold October morning. Harrison was working on repairs to the church roof when he heard shouting from the direction of the schoolhouse. He dropped his tools and ran, his heart in his throat. A crowd had gathered in the schoolyard. Harrison pushed through to find Adelaide standing protectively in front of her students, facing down three men he did not recognize. They were rough-looking, armed with the swagger of men used to intimidating others. "What is going on?" Harrison demanded. One of the men turned to him. "This does not concern you, Drifter. We are here to deliver a message from Mr. Harrison. Everything concerning the school concerns me." "What message?" "Mr. Harrison has decided that Platteville does not need an Eastern schoolteacher filling children's heads with nonsense. Miss Jensen has until the end of the week to leave town voluntarily, or she will be removed." Adelaide's face was pale but defiant. "I have a contract with the school board. I am not leaving." "The school board does not matter. Mr. Harrison says you are done, so you are done." Harrison stepped between Adelaide and the men. "She is not going anywhere, and you are going to leave. Now." The lead man grinned unpleasantly. "Or what? You going to take on all three of us? Even you are not that stupid." He is not alone. Harrison turned to see Peterson standing at the edge of the crowd, holding a shotgun. Behind him, more townspeople were gathering, many of them armed. Martha Crawford pushed forward. "My children love Miss Jensen. She is the best teacher we have ever had. She is not leaving." Other voices joined in, a chorus of support. The blacksmith, the baker, the widow who ran the boarding house. Even Gerald Hopkins from the school board appeared, looking nervous but determined. The school board stands behind Miss Jensen, Hopkins said, his voice shaking slightly. She has a contract. Mr. Haverson has no authority over school business. The three men looked at each other, realizing they were outnumbered. The lead man spat on the ground. You are all making a mistake. Haverson does not forget this kind of disrespect. Then tell Haverson he is welcome to bring his complaints to the next school board meeting like a civilized person, Hopkins said, finding his courage. Until then, Miss Jensen stays. The men left, muttering threats. The crowd slowly dispersed, people stopping to offer words of support to Adelaide. Harrison stayed close, watching her process what had just happened. They stood up for me, she said quietly. The town stood up for me. Because you matter to them. I told you that you would. But Haverson will not stop. He will come back with more men, more threats. How can I teach when I am constantly looking over my shoulder? Harrison took her hands. We will figure it out. The town is behind you. That is more powerful than Haverson's money. But even as he said it, Harrison worried. Haverson was not a man who accepted defeat easily. This was far from over. That evening, Harrison called a meeting at the saloon. The town's men gathered, drinking coffee and beer, discussing the situation. We need to stand together, Harrison said. Haverson is used to getting his way through intimidation. He only has power if we give it to him. Easy for you to say, one of the ranch hands muttered. You do not work for him. Some of us depend on Haverson Ranch for our livelihoods. Then we need to make sure he understands that running the town is different from running his ranch, Peterson said. Town business is decided by town people, not by one rich rancher. We should write to the county sheriff, Hopkins suggested. Get official protection. Sheriff is 2 days away, the blacksmith pointed out. By the time he gets here, any trouble will be long over. Then we protect ourselves, Harrison said. We set up a watch on the schoolhouse. We make sure Adelaide is never alone. And we make it clear that anyone who threatens her or the children is going to have to deal with all of us. The men agreed, organizing themselves into shifts. Harrison took the night watch, sleeping on a bedroll on the schoolhouse porch, his rifle within reach. Adelaide protested at first, saying she did not want to be a burden. Harrison simply kissed her forehead and told her she was worth protecting. Days passed with no further incidents. The watch continued. Adelaide taught her classes with renewed determination, as if defying Haverson through excellence. The children thrived under her attention. Harrison found himself thinking about the future in ways he had not allowed himself to before. He imagined staying in Platteville permanently. Imagined marrying Adelaide, maybe building them a small house near the school. Imagined watching her teach for years, watching her students grow and succeed. It was terrifying and wonderful in equal measure. One evening in late October, as the first snow of the season began to fall, Harrison and Adelaide sat by the potbelly stove in her quarters, watching the flakes drift past the window. I have been thinking, Adelaide said, leaning against his shoulder. About us, about the future. What about it? I want you to know that I love you. I know it is fast, and I know we have not known each other long, but I am certain. I love you, Harrison Sutton. Harrison felt his throat tighten. I love you too. I think I have since the day I met you on that stagecoach, watching you try to be brave when you were terrified. I was not that obvious. You were to me. He turned to face her fully. Adelaide, I came to Colorado with nothing, no purpose, no direction, no reason to keep going. You gave me all of that. You gave me a reason to stay, to fight, to build something real. I do not know what the future holds, but I know I want to face it with you. Are you asking me to marry you? Eventually, when this situation with Haverson is resolved. When I can offer you a proper life instead of just protecting you from threats. Adelaide smiled. I do not need a proper life. I just need you. You deserve both." They kissed as snow continued to fall outside, soft and silent, covering Platteville in a blanket of white. The attack came 2 weeks later, on a Saturday night when most of the town was at the church social. Harrison had stayed behind, maintaining his watch on the schoolhouse, a decision that probably saved Adelaide's life. He heard the horses first, moving quietly through the snowy streets. Then he saw them, 5 riders, faces covered with bandanas, approaching the schoolhouse with torches. Harrison fired a warning shot into the air. "That is far enough." The riders stopped. One of them called out, "Walk away, drifter. This does not concern you, like hell it does not." Adelaide appeared in the doorway behind him, awakened by the gunshot. Harrison pushed her back inside without taking his eyes off the riders. "Get out," he ordered them. "I will not ask again. There are 5 of us and one of you. The math is not in your favor." Harrison levered another round into his rifle. "The whole town will hear gunfire. They will be here in minutes. You really want to explain to everyone what you were doing?" The riders hesitated. Harrison could see them calculating, weighing their orders against the risk. Then church bells began ringing, the alarm signal. Peterson must have heard the shot and understood what it meant. Within minutes, men were running from the church, armed and angry. The riders wheeled their horses and fled into the darkness. Harrison watched them go, his heart pounding, relief and anger warring inside him. Adelaide came out wrapped in a blanket. They were going to burn it. They were going to burn the school. Harrison pulled her against him. But they did not, and they will not. The town gathered in the schoolyard, everyone talking at once. Hopkins was furious, demanding action. Peterson organized pursuit, but the riders had too much of a head start. "This was Haverson," Martha Crawford said, voicing what everyone was thinking. "He tried to destroy our school because we would not bow to him." "We do not know that for certain," Hopkins said, though his tone suggested he believed it. "Who else would it be?" the blacksmith demanded. "This is war, plain and simple. Haverson versus the town." "Then the town needs to respond," Harrison said. "Tomorrow we ride out to the Haverson ranch, all of us, and we make it clear that this ends now." The men agreed. 30 of them gathered at dawn, armed but not aggressive. They rode out to the Haverson ranch in a show of united force. Old man Haverson met them on his porch, flanked by his ranch hands. His son Jake stood beside him, his wrist still bandaged. "This is private property," Haverson said. "You are all trespassing." Peterson stepped forward. "Last night 5 riders tried to burn down our schoolhouse. We think they were your men. You have no proof of that. We have common sense. You have been threatening Miss Jensen for weeks. You have been trying to drive her out of town. You think we do not see the pattern." Haverson's face remained impassive. "I have no idea what you are talking about. If someone tried to damage the school, it was not my doing." "Then you will have no problem with us posting guards around the clock," Harrison said. "And if your men come anywhere near the school or Miss Jensen, we will assume they are acting on your orders. You do not give me orders, drifter." "This is not an order, it is a promise. The town is united. You push us, we push back, and there are more of us than there are of you." Haverson looked over the assembled men, recognizing faces, calculating odds. Finally, he nodded slowly. "Fine. I will make sure my men know to stay away from the school. But this matter is not settled. That woman is poison, and eventually this town will see it." "The only poison here is your pride," Martha Crawford called out. "Leave our teacher alone." The townspeople rode back to Platteville, victorious but wary. Haverson had backed down, but everyone knew it was temporary. Men like him did not forget grudges. Still, for the first time since the trouble started, Harrison felt hope. The town had united. They had stood up to Haverson and won, at least for now. Winter settled over Platteville, bringing snow and cold and a strange kind of peace. The watch on the schoolhouse continued, but no more attacks came. Haverson remained on his ranch, nursing his wounded pride. Adelaide students prepared for their Christmas program, learning songs and recitations. The whole town turned out for the performance, packing the schoolhouse to capacity. The children sang and spoke their pieces with pride, and Adelaide glowed with joy. Afterward, Harrison found her surrounded by grateful parents, all praising her work. She had won the town completely. She was no longer the Eastern outsider. She was their teacher, their neighbor, their friend. That night, as they walked through the snowy streets, Adelaide said, "I never imagined it could be like this, that I could belong somewhere so completely. You earned it. We earned it. I could not have done any of this without you." Harrison stopped walking and pulled out a small box from his coat pocket. "Then maybe you will agree to keep me around permanently." Adelaide gasped as he opened the box, revealing a simple gold band. It was not fancy. He had bought it from the traveling jeweler who passed through town monthly, but it was honest and solid, like their love. "Adelaide Jensen, will you marry me?" "Yes. Yes, 1,000 times yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger and they kissed in the falling snow, two broken people who had found each other and become whole. They were married on New Year's Day, 1879, in the Platteville church. The whole town attended. Martha Crawford cried. Peterson gave Harrison away, having become something like a father figure. Hopkins performed the ceremony, nervous but honored. Even in his joy, Harrison kept watch for Haverson or his men, but they did not appear. Perhaps the old rancher had finally accepted defeat, or perhaps he was simply waiting for a better opportunity. Harrison chose not to care. This was his wedding day, and nothing was going to ruin it. Adelaide looked beautiful in a dress made by the town's women, simple white cotton with lace at the collar and cuffs. Her hair was pinned up with small flowers someone had managed to preserve from summer. When she said her vows, her voice was clear and certain, and Harrison felt his heart nearly burst with love and gratitude. They honeymooned in Adelaide's small quarters behind the schoolhouse, which were now Harrison's quarters too. He had sold his room at the saloon and moved his meager belongings into the school. It was cramped but cozy, made better by Adelaide's touches: curtains on the windows, rugs on the floor, books on every surface. "I never thought I would be this happy," Adelaide whispered on their wedding night, curled against Harrison's chest. "After what happened in Philadelphia, I thought I was broken, that I would never trust anyone again. You are not broken. You are the strongest person I know. I am strong because you helped me be strong. You stood beside me when everyone else would have walked away. You gave me courage. You gave me purpose, fair trade." She laughed softly. "I love you, Harrison Sutton. I love you, Adelaide Sutton." Saying her new name felt right, felt like coming home after a long journey. Spring came early to Colorado that year, melting the snow and bringing green to the plains. Adelaide's students flourished. Two of the older boys announced they wanted to continue their education beyond the basics, perhaps even attend a university someday. Adelaide worked with them in the evenings, teaching advanced mathematics and literature, helping them prepare. Harrison had saved enough money to begin building a small house on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, but theirs, with enough space for a real bedroom, a kitchen, maybe eventually a nursery. He worked on it in his spare time, aided by men from the town who donated labor and materials. Adelaide was involved in every decision, choosing paint colors, discussing room layouts, planning where furniture would go. Watching her eyes light up as she imagined their future life made all of Harrison's previous emptiness feel like a bad dream. One warm April afternoon, Adelaide came to the building site with news. Her face was flushed, her eyes bright with excitement and nervousness. "Harrison, I need to tell you something." He set down his hammer. "What is it?" "I am pregnant." The world seemed to stop. Harrison stared at her, processing the words, feeling joy and terror crash over him in equal waves. "You are sure?" "I saw the doctor in Denver last week. He confirmed it. We are going to have a baby." Harrison swept her up in his arms, spinning her around, laughing with pure happiness. A baby. Their baby. A life they would create and protect and love. "Are you happy?" Adelaide asked when he set her down. "I am terrified and ecstatic. Is that normal? Completely normal?" They sat on the porch of the half-built house, looking out over the plains, imagining the life they were building. A home, a family, a future. Everything Harrison had thought he would never want or need. The peace lasted until mid-May. Harrison was in town, buying supplies at the general store when he heard the commotion. Shouting from the direction of the schoolhouse, the sound of breaking glass. He ran, his heart in his throat, praying it was not what he thought. But it was. The Haverson boys, Jake and 3 others, were back, drunk and angry, terrorizing Adelaide's students. The children were huddled in the corner, crying. Adelaide stood between them and the men, holding a piece of broken desk leg like a club. "Get away from my students," she said, her voice shaking but firm. "Your students?" Jake laughed. "You mean the children you have been filling with lies and Eastern nonsense. We are here to finish what we started last fall. Haverson Ranch does not need a school. Kids learn by working." Harrison crashed through the door, fury making his vision red. "Get out. Now." Jake turned, his face splitting into a cruel smile. "Well, if it is not the drifter who thinks he is a hero, come to save your wife. Too late. We are done being scared of you and this pathetic town. Last warning, leave or I make you leave. There are 4 of us, drifter. You are not so tough." What happened next was fast and brutal. Harrison had lived his entire adult life working hard physical labor. He was strong, fast, and motivated by the need to protect his wife and her students. The Haverson boys were drunk and overconfident. Harrison grabbed Jake first, the ringleader, and drove his fist into the man's face with all his strength. Jake went down hard. The others rushed Harrison. He fought with everything he had, taking hits but giving worse, protecting Adelaide and the children behind him. By the time Peterson and other townsmen arrived, all 4 Haverson boys were on the ground, bloodied and groaning. Harrison was bleeding from a cut above his eye and his knuckles were raw, but he was standing. "Get them out of here," Harrison said, breathing hard. "And someone ride for the county sheriff. This has gone too far." The boys were dragged out and locked in the general store's cellar, the closest thing Platteville had to a jail. A rider was sent for the sheriff. Harrison turned to Adelaide, who was checking on each of her frightened students. "Are you all right?" he asked. "I am fine. The baby is fine. The children are scared but unhurt." She touched his bloody face gently. "You are hurt. Nothing serious. You could have been killed. Not while you and our baby needed me." Adelaide started to cry then, the fear and stress finally breaking through her brave facade. Harrison held her while she sobbed, whispering reassurances, promising everything would be all right. The parents arrived to collect their children, many of them in tears, all of them grateful. Word spread quickly through town about what had happened. By evening, a crowd had gathered, angry and demanding justice. Old man Haverson arrived at sunset, riding into town with a dozen armed ranch hands. He looked older than Harrison remembered, worn down by months of conflict. "I want my boys," Haverson said, his voice tired. "They are being held for the sheriff," Hopkins said. "They attacked the school. Again. They terrorize children. This cannot be tolerated. I will pay for the damages. This is not about money. This is about right and wrong. Your boys broke the law. They will face justice." Haverson looked around at the assembled townspeople, seeing the united front against him. Something in his expression shifted, a kind of defeat settling into the lines of his face. "You think I wanted this?" he said quietly. "You think I wanted months of conflict with my neighbors? I built an empire out here through hard work and determination. I provided jobs, brought prosperity to this region, and all I asked was respect. Respect is earned, not demanded," Harrison said. "You tried to bully your way to it, and it backfired. My boys were just. Your boys were cruel and destructive because you never taught them otherwise," Martha Crawford interrupted. "You raised them to think they were above rules, above decency, above consequences." "Well, consequences have finally arrived, Mr. Haverson." The old rancher was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "You are right. I let them run wild. I thought making them tough meant letting them do whatever they wanted. I was wrong." He looked at Harrison. "You are a better man than me, Drifter. You protected what mattered. I only protected my pride." "It is not too late to do better," Adelaide said, stepping forward. "Your ranch hands have children in my school. Good children who are learning and growing. You could support that instead of fighting it, and have them turn soft, have them turn educated. Educated men build better lives, better ranches, better communities. Is not that what you want for the future?" Haverson considered this, old prejudices warring with new understanding. Finally, he sighed. "I will pay for all damages to the school. I will personally ensure my boys face the sheriff and accept their punishment, and I will stop interfering with the school." He looked at Adelaide. "You have one teacher. You and your Drifter husband. You have earned your place here." "We did not want to win," Adelaide said. "We just wanted to teach children and live in peace. Sometimes those are the same thing." The county sheriff arrived 2 days later. He took statements, reviewed the evidence, and arrested the Haverson boys for destruction of property, assault, and terrorizing minors. They would face trial in the county seat. True to his word, Haverson paid for all damages and more, donating money for new books and supplies. He even came to watch one of Adelaide's classes, standing in the back with his hat in his hands, watching his ranch hands' children recite their lessons. Afterward, he approached Adelaide. "You are good at this. My son Jake, he never finished school. Maybe if he had, he would have turned out different. It is never too late to learn," Adelaide said gently. "I offer evening classes for adults. Your ranch hands are welcome to attend." Haverson looked surprised, then thoughtful. "I might take you up on that." He never did attend the evening classes, but several of his ranch hands did, learning to read and write and cipher. It was a small victory, but it felt like a turning point. Summer arrived, hot and bright. Harrison finished building their house. It was small but solid, with a bedroom, a kitchen, a living area, and a small nursery waiting for their baby. Adelaide moved her belongings from the schoolhouse quarters, transforming their new space into a home with curtains and quilts, and all the little touches that made a house more than just walls and a roof. School ended for the summer. Adelaide spent her days preparing for the baby, sewing tiny clothes, organizing the nursery, reading every book about childbirth and infant care she could find. Harrison worked with Peterson during the day and spent evenings with Adelaide, his hand on her growing belly, feeling their child move. "What do you think it will be?" Adelaide asked one evening as they sat on their porch watching the sunset. "Healthy, that is all that matters. But if you had to guess, boy or girl, a girl, with your brains and my stubbornness, the world does not stand a chance." Adelaide laughed. or a boy with your kindness and my determination? Equally dangerous. Either way, we are in trouble, the best kind of trouble. They sat in comfortable silence, hands intertwined, watching the sky fade from gold to purple to star-filled black. Harrison thought about the man he had been when he arrived in Platteville, empty, directionless, convinced that purpose was impossible. That man felt like a stranger now. "What are you thinking about?" Adelaide asked. "How everyone on that stagecoach had a reason for going west except me. I could not come up with one, no matter how hard I tried. And now I have more reasons than I can count. You, our baby, our home, our town. Purpose is not something you find, it turns out. It is something you build, one choice at a time. Very philosophical for a cowboy. I learned from the best teacher in Colorado." Adelaide kissed him as the first stars appeared, and Harrison felt completely, perfectly content. Their daughter was born on a cool September evening, just as the school year was starting. Adelaide had arranged for a substitute teacher for the first month, a young woman from Denver, eager to learn from the legendary Miss Jensen, now Mrs. Sutton. The birth was long and difficult. Harrison paced outside the bedroom while the doctor and midwife worked, listening to Adelaide's cries and feeling helpless. Finally, after hours that felt like years, he heard the most beautiful sound in the world, his daughter's first cry. The midwife opened the door. "You have a healthy baby girl. Mother and child are doing fine." Harrison rushed in to find Adelaide exhausted but glowing, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in a blanket. He knelt beside the bed, looking at his daughter's perfect little face, her tiny fingers, her eyes squeezed shut against the world. "She is beautiful," he whispered. "She is perfect," Adelaide agreed. "Harrison, meet Hope Sutton." "Hope, because that is what you gave me when I needed it most. Hope that life could be good again, that love was real, that starting over was possible. Now we get to give that same gift to her." Harrison touched his daughter's soft hair, felt her tiny hand close around his finger, and knew that every empty day, every moment of meaninglessness, every mile of aimless drifting had led him here to this moment, to this family. "Hello, Hope," he said softly. "Welcome home." The years that followed were full of the kind of quiet joy that builds a life. Adelaide returned to teaching after a month, bringing baby Hope to the schoolhouse, where she slept in a cradle in the corner while her mother taught. The students loved having a baby around, often fighting over who got to help care for her during breaks. Harrison continued his work with Peterson and others, building and repairing structures around Platteville. The town was growing, attracting new families drawn by the school's reputation and the sense of community. More businesses opened. The church got a new steeple. Platteville was prospering. Harrison kept his word, staying out of school business, even attending the annual Christmas programs to watch his ranch hands' children perform. He never apologized directly, but his actions spoke louder than words. The conflict that had nearly torn the town apart became a cautionary tale, a reminder of what happened when pride trumped common sense. Harrison and Adelaide's house expanded as their family grew. A son, Thomas, was born 2 years after Hope, then another daughter, Grace, 2 years after that. Each child was welcomed with joy, each one expanding the family's capacity for love. Harrison taught his children to ride, to work with wood, to understand the land. Adelaide taught them to read, to think critically, to care about learning. Together, they raised children who were confident, kind, and capable. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Harrison and Adelaide sat on their porch, watching their children play in the yard. Hope was teaching Thomas to read from a primer. Grace was arranging rocks into patterns, creating art from the ordinary. "You ever miss Philadelphia?" Harrison asked. Adelaide leaned against his shoulder. Not even a little. Everything I need is right here. Do you ever regret coming west? Never. Best decision I ever made. Well, second best. What was the first? Accepting help from a cowboy who was too stubborn to walk away. Harrison smiled. I did not have anywhere else to go. You could have gotten on another stagecoach, could have kept drifting, but you stayed. Because you gave me a reason to. We gave each other reasons. That is how it works. We save each other every day in 100 small ways. Harrison thought about the man he had been, the emptiness that had driven him from his ranch, the certainty that nothing mattered. That man was gone, replaced by someone who woke each morning with purpose, who went to bed each night grateful, who measured his life not in acres or cattle but in moments with the people he loved. I love you, Adelaide Sutton, he said. I love you, Harrison Sutton. Always. They sat together as the sun set over the Colorado plains, painting the sky in shades of fire and gold, surrounded by the life they had built together from nothing but hope and determination and love. Years continued to pass, each one adding layers to their story. Hope grew into a serious, studious girl who wanted to be a teacher like her mother. Thomas was adventurous and kind, always bringing home injured animals or lost children. Grace was artistic and dreamy, seeing beauty in everything. Adelaide eventually trained Hope to take over the school, passing on her legacy to the next generation. She and Harrison spent their later years traveling between their children and grandchildren. Hope married a lawyer and had 3 children. Thomas became a rancher with 4 kids. Grace married an artist and had 2. On a warm summer evening in 1915, Harrison and Adelaide sat on the porch of their home in Platteville. They were both in their 70s now, weathered by time but still deeply in love. The town had grown around them, electric lights, automobiles, paved streets, but their house remained, a testament to simpler times. You remember the day we met? Adelaide asked, her voice soft with age but still clear. Every detail. You were reading a letter on the stagecoach, looking terrified and brave at the same time. I was running away. You were starting over. There is a difference, she smiled. You told me that once before. It was true then. It is true now. I have been thinking about the story of us. How everyone on that stagecoach had a reason for going west except you, the cowboy who could not come up with one. And then I found my reason. You. We found each other. 2 broken people who became whole together. Harrison took her hand, feeling the familiar warmth and weight of it. They had held hands like this for 37 years, through joy and sorrow, through conflict and peace, through every moment that mattered. If I could go back, Harrison said, back to that morning when I sold my ranch and bought that stagecoach ticket, would I do it the same way? Would you? Without hesitation. Every empty moment, every mile of drifting, every second of meaninglessness led me to you. I would live through all of it again just to end up here, on this porch, holding your hand. Adelaide leaned against him, and they watched the sunset together, just as they had done thousands of times before. The sky turned gold, then pink, then purple, painting the Colorado plains in the colors of home. Their children and grandchildren would tell their story for generations. The Eastern schoolteacher who came west to start over. The cowboy who had no reason to stay but stayed anyway. The love that built a town, raised a family, created a legacy of purpose and meaning from nothing but 2 broken people who refused to give up on each other. In the end, Harrison Sutton found what he had been searching for without knowing he was searching. Not land, not wealth, not accomplishment, but connection. The simple, profound truth that a life mattered not because of what you built, but because of who you built it with. And every day, for the rest of their long, happy lives together, Harrison woke up grateful for that dusty August afternoon in 1878, when a stagecoach pulled into Platteville, Colorado, carrying 7 passengers with their various reasons for going west, and one cowboy who had no reason at all, but found every reason he needed in the sharp gray eyes and determined spirit of a schoolteacher named Adelaide Jensen. Their love story became part of Platteville's history, told and retold, a reminder that sometimes the best reasons are the ones we discover along the way, and that the courage to stay can be more powerful than the courage to go. Harrison and Adelaide lived into their 80s, passing away within months of each other, still holding hands, still in love, still grateful for the chance encounter that changed everything. They were buried in the Platteville cemetery under a simple stone that read, Harrison and Adelaide Sutton. They found each other and found themselves. Their house still stands in modern-day Platteville, preserved as a historical site, a testament to the power of love, purpose, and 2 people who refuse to let emptiness win. Visitors walk through the rooms where they lived, loved, and raised their family, feeling the echo of their story in every carefully preserved detail. And sometimes, on warm summer evenings when the light hits just right, people swear they can see 2 figures on the porch, hands intertwined, watching the sunset over the Colorado plains, exactly where they are supposed to be, exactly where they always belonged. 2 souls who found their reason in each other and built a life that mattered from nothing but hope, determination, and love that refused to quit. The end of their story was also the beginning of a legacy that touched generations, of a love that inspired countless others, of the simple truth that sometimes the best things in life come not from careful planning, but from being brave enough to stop when everyone else keeps going, to stay when everyone else leaves, to build something real and lasting with someone who matters. Harrison Sutton came to Platteville with no reason, and left this world surrounded by more reasons than any one man deserved. And in between those 2 moments lived a life of profound meaning, built one day at a time, one choice at a time, one moment of connection at a time, proving that purpose is not something you find waiting for you somewhere down the road. It is something you create, together, with the people brave enough to build it alongside you. Their story ends here, but its impact echoes forward through time, a reminder that love is always the best reason, that staying is often braver than going, and that sometimes the most lost among us just need one person to give us a reason to be found. Harrison and Adelaide Sutton. The cowboy who had no reason, the teacher who gave him every reason, the love that built a legacy. The story that reminds us all that it is never too late to start over, never too late to find purpose, and never too late to discover that the reason you have been searching for has been searching for you too. And they lived happily, purposefully, meaningfully ever after.